The door clicked shut behind her, and the sound felt louder than thunder in the quiet hallway. He looked up from the chair where he had been waiting to sign the divorce papers, already rehearsing cold words in his head, and then his breath caught in his throat. Her scarf had slipped, her coat was unbuttoned, and there was no hiding it anymore. The gentle curve of her belly told a truth he was not ready to face. 7 months pregnant. His pen slipped from his fingers and rolled across the floor. If you believe stories can change hearts and heal broken people, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this story might just stay with you longer than you expect. He hadn't seen her in months. Not since the night their words turned into knives and both of them walked away bleeding inside. They were young when they married, full of dreams and promises that sounded easy when life was kind. But life had not been kind. His small business failed, debts piled up, and with every bill he felt himself shrinking, becoming quieter, colder. She tried to be patient, to hold the house together with hope and prayers, but hope gets tired when it is ignored. One evening, after another argument about money and his long silences, she packed a small bag and left. The distance between them grew until it felt permanent. Now she stood in front of him, thinner in the face, eyes deeper with something he couldn't name at first. Was it sadness, strength, or both? He wanted to ask the obvious question, but shame glued his tongue. The lawyer's office smelled of paper and dust, and the clock on the wall ticked like it was counting down the last seconds of their marriage. She sat across from him, placed her hands gently over her belly, and took a slow breath. The silence stretched, heavy with everything unsaid. "I didn't come to trap you," she finally said, her voice steady but soft. "I came because the papers are ready. We both said we wanted this." He nodded, even though his heart was pounding. In his mind, 1,000 questions screamed at once. Is the child his? Why didn't she tell him earlier? Why now? The pen lay between them like a small, harmless object, yet it felt as dangerous as a blade. He picked it up, but his hand trembled. Their story had not begun with anger. It had begun with laughter in a small cafe where they shared one cup of tea because they were too broke to buy two. They used to dream about a simple life, about building something together. Somewhere along the road, those dreams were buried under stress and pride. He had learned to hide his fear behind silence, and she had learned to hide her loneliness behind strength. Both of them had been wrong in their own ways, and now that truth sat between them, round and undeniable in her womb. He finally asked the question he was afraid of. As the baby, his voice broke before he could finish. She looked him in the eyes, and for a moment he saw the girl he fell in love with, the one who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. "Yes," she said simply. "It's yours." The room felt smaller. The walls seemed to lean in. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, tears were already there. He hadn't cried when his business collapsed. He hadn't cried when she left. But this broke something open inside him. She told him how she found out she was pregnant a week after leaving. How she stood alone in a clinic bathroom, staring at the test, her hands shaking. How she thought of calling him but remembered his last cold words, the way he had said he needed space, how tired he was of failing. She decided to carry the burden quietly, to protect him from more stress, and maybe to protect herself from more pain. She moved in with her sister, found small work, and learned to sleep with one hand on her belly, whispering promises to a child who had no idea how broken their parents were. He listened, feeling each word like a weight on his chest. He realized how blind he had been to her loneliness, how wrapped he was in his own failures. He had thought leaving her would spare her from his sinking life, but all he had done was leave her to face storms alone. The lawyer cleared his throat gently, reminding them of the papers. Reality returned, sharp and uncomfortable. The decision they came to make was still there, waiting. She pushed the papers toward him. "We can still end this with respect," she said. "I'm not here to force you into anything. I'll raise this child with dignity, whether you're in our lives or not." Her words were calm, but there was a quiet strength in them that made him feel both small and deeply moved. He looked at her belly again, imagining tiny fingers, a heartbeat, a future that could exist with or without him. The thought of being absent from that future felt heavier than any debt he had ever known. He remembered his own childhood, growing up with a father who was always away, chasing work and never finding time. He remembered the empty chair at school events, the quiet disappointment that became normal. He didn't want his child to learn that kind of emptiness. But fear whispered to him that he wasn't enough, that he would fail again, that he would hurt them both. The pen hovered over the paper, waiting for a signature that could end everything neatly. Instead of signing, he put the pen down. His voice was low, almost a whisper. I don't know how to fix what I broke, he said. I don't know how to suddenly become strong. But I know I don't want to walk away from my child. And I don't want to walk away from you like this, not without trying to become better. The lawyer looked surprised. She looked at him, her eyes filling with tears she had been holding back for months. They didn't suddenly become a happy couple in that moment. Real life doesn't work that way. Healing is slow, and trust doesn't return just because someone says sorry. But they agreed to pause the divorce, not as a promise of forever, but as a promise of effort. He offered to attend counseling, to find stable work even if it meant starting from the bottom again. She agreed to let him be present, to allow space for change instead of guarding her heart behind walls. The months that followed were not easy. There were awkward conversations, old wounds reopening, days when doubt felt stronger than hope. He struggled to rebuild his confidence, took small jobs, saved what he could, and learned to talk instead of shutting down. She learned to share her fears instead of carrying them alone. They went to doctor visits together, sitting side by side, sometimes in silence, sometimes with soft smiles when they heard the baby's heartbeat. Each heartbeat felt like a reminder that life had given them another chance, fragile but real. When the child was born, the world felt suddenly bigger and smaller at the same time. Bigger because there was a new life to protect, smaller because everything else seemed less important. He held the tiny body in his arms, overwhelmed by a love he didn't know he was capable of feeling. She watched him, and in that moment, something in her softened. Not all wounds were healed, but some scars began to lose their sting. They didn't become perfect. They argued sometimes. They made mistakes. But they learned to choose each other in small ways every day. He learned that being strong didn't mean never failing, it meant standing up again after falling. She learned that letting someone try again didn't make her weak, it made her brave. Their story didn't end with a fairy tale promise, but with something more real, commitment to growth, to honesty, and to the child who had unknowingly brought them back to the same room to face the truth. If this story touched your heart even a little, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like these remind us that life can surprise us with second chances when we least expect them. Sometimes, the moment you think everything is ending is actually the moment something new is beginning. Even broken people can build something beautiful if they are willing to face their fears, speak their truths, and take one honest step forward.